Yeah, it's also funny because, so I'm Adam. Hello. What is funny is that I'm from Transylvania, and we also consider ourselves like the Switzerland of the Balkans. Maybe if we would get rid of Romania, then we would be the Swiss of, yeah. But all right, so who knows this website? How many people know this website? You better raise your hand. Cool. How many people have sold something on Tutti? Okay, still a few hands. Mind sharing what you sold? Just shout it out. Anyone? What furniture? Cool. All right, so a lot of people know Tutti in Switzerland, but still every time when we invite someone for a user interview, the first thing they say is like, "Wow, you have an office and there's a team." I thought there's just one guy in the basement doing this. So I'm not sure if this is a compliment or not. Probably not, but yeah, let's just skip that. So Tutti started 8 years ago, and it looked like this. I joined in 2015, and it was tough times. So we had two front-end engineers, and this was our website. It was already quite big and successful, but the platform that we had was very, very old. So we inherited it from some guy in Sweden. It has really a weird story. But back then we had one release per week. So that was the release of the week. If you wanted to get something out and you didn't manage to do it by Tuesday or Wednesday, the testing went on, so everything was already too late, and yeah, you basically failed. And back then I was a product manager, so I was trying to get out of this situation to release more often. And yeah, we started to rewrite the website with React. We started with the low-risk pages, so my profile, account pages, stuff like this. It went well. Then we went further to the listing pages, to the search result pages, product detail pages, and then we had our first hiccup. So we realized that we need server-side rendering to make this happen. So server-side rendering is this concept where the server or Node.js can read your JavaScript, can read your JSX and returns it as a template. Very good for SEO, for sharing social links and so on, so we couldn't get around this. And at this point, Savas was already my colleague, and he disappeared for 3 months. He was gone, and after 3 months, he was back with a concept. Like, hey, here, this is a proof of concept. I made it work. That was cool. So fast forward, we went out with 5% release, 10% release, 100% release. Developers were very happy. We had finally React everywhere in production. Users were not that pissed, so they still complained like before, but it wasn't too bad. And yeah, we made it work. But it was a lot of work. So, wow, it got dark. So we did do server-side rendering, but this meant that we were now suddenly the special snowflakes because we needed a separate server where we had the node process running. We had to implement some monitoring, way to fetch logs, CI/CD, feature branches. We had to have rollbacks if someone messes up something to quickly revert. So there was a lot of work, and this is where StormKit got started, or the idea came from, and this was kind of our sentence that we used to repeat, that we should build our app, or we want to help people build their app and not their infrastructure. All that time that we put into infrastructure was not providing much business value. Customers were screaming, we want features, we want bug fixes, and we were focusing on ourselves, basically.
So before starting to show the tool, as I have the word right now, I'd like to defend myself, because when Adam said 3 months for server-side rendering, it sounds like a lot, but it's actually not a lot, because it's not only about server-side rendering. So we have a huge code base, and we have to refactor the code, that's one thing, but then on the other hand, we serve millions of requests per day, which meant that we have to have a rock-solid node application. And for this, we have to have monitoring, logging, and we have to integrate this with our CI system, with our continuous integration system. So we had a lot of stuff to do, and that's actually when I thought there should be a tool that you just develop your application, you just focus on your application, and the tool basically figures out the rest. again, as Adam mentioned, that was 3 months that I didn't spend on building features, but rather I spent on the architecture. So now I'm gonna speak about StormKit, but before showing, I think that it's actually easier to describe something with a picture rather than 1,000 words. So I will simply go here and then show you the tool. So, briefly, StormKit is a serverless application. You can build your application there, and StormKit figures out how to do deployments, logging, monitoring, and stuff like this. So you don't have to focus on the architecture. You can connect to your favorite repository. So for now, we have GitHub and Bitbucket. GitLab will be added soon, hopefully. And I'm gonna move on by logging in with GitHub. Once you log in, you have a list of applications. So as said before, an application is basically a repository, which means you can connect to Bitbucket or GitHub, and you can connect to a repository, and this will be an application on StormKit. Now, yesterday I created an application for WebSeries for the demo. It should be down here. WebSeries. All right. So this is the page where you see the application. And the first thing that you see is the environment. So in StormKit, you can have multiple environments. The environments are useful for testing your application against different configuration. For instance, you lost it?
Yes, we did.
All right.
Oh.
Am I going too fast, by the way? It's my first public speech, so I could be a bit nervous. This is okay. This is not.
You're doing fine.
Okay, good.
If you can repeat the last minute.
Yeah. All right. So I was saying that with StormKit you have environments. We have a staging environment, a QA environment, and a production environment at Tutti. So this is where the idea comes from, and we test our application with different environments. For instance, you don't want to test your application with a production database or with the production payment provider, because that will be very expensive. So you have staging environments. And adding environments is as simple as clicking here the button and adding, you simply provide the details. Now I'm going to go back because to this page will come later. But if I click on this production environment, by the way, every application comes with a production environment, so you don't have to set this. If we click on the production environment, here you have a configuration. We see on the right the logs and a list of deployments. As said before, you can, so this is similar to the page to add environment. As said before, you can have multiple configurations. And here in the environment settings, you have the environment name, the branch, and then you have a build configuration. The server file, which I will come back in a moment, then the publish folder, which is basically where your, by the way, I should mention that this is meant for modern web applications. By modern web applications, I mean tools using modern tools like the CI, React, Vue, Angular, single page applications. So it's mostly meant for these applications. That's why we have here the publish folder, where your build assets, the artifacts lie, and then we have a build command to build your application, and here you can specify the environment variables. Now, we have the server file, which I think is pretty important here. By default, it comes empty. You don't have a server file specified, and this means that when you build your application, it will be served from the CDN. So this is perfectly fine for landing pages. For sites that are using static site generators, it's perfectly fine. But the moment when you need dynamic behavior, like Tutti, for instance, Tutti is serving the content, the user-generated content dynamically. You can simply enable this by adding a server file, and this will tell StormKit to not build the application from a CDN, to not deploy it to a CDN, but to use Lambda functions behind the scenes. So you have your server environment just by adding a server file. If I go back here,
So here there's a list of deployments. Every deployment has its commit message, the author, the timestamp, and then the status. And then if I check here, for instance, we have a bunch of other links, like the preview, view details, or delete. Now, if I click to view details, this is a failed deploy. If I click to view details, you see the build logs. So this is what we mean by integrated CI. Simply by pushing to a button, you can deploy your application and see you see the steps one by one, and you see what is failed. In this case, I simply forgot to add this module, so that's why it failed, and it didn't work out. Now, if I go back, you see here you see a tiny icon which says it's the current one. This means that this environment uses currently the webzuri.bsk.me domain. It's attached to this domain. And if I click here, you will see this version right now, the extract CSS version, which is this one. It's basically the WebZuri with 3 talks, nothing more. Now, if I go back and then I say, OK, I want to publish a new version, and then publish to production. And if I go back and refresh the page, it's a new version. This is pretty cool because we, at Tutti, for instance, we are struggling with the instant rollbacks. When we have a bug, it's very tough for us to do a rollback. We have to SSH into the, you know as well, we have to SSH into the server, change the current build, and we have to do this in 2 servers because we have 2 servers, so it's not straightforward. Now here, with a simple button click, you can change the design. Now I'm going to switch back this to the old version because later I'm going to show something. Yeah, how are we doing with the time, by the way?
Pretty good.
Okay. Okay, cool, super. So one thing that we were struggling at Tutti again was the logs. So when the application, so Node application, when you throw an error and you don't catch it, the Node application the process will die. So you have to restart the process. So you have to implement a process manager for this and hope that that error doesn't occur again. And it's very hard to debug this because it will be somewhere in the logs. And you probably don't notice this. So for this reason, we thought that StormKit should be very helpful. And whenever there is a bug, it should display it right on the deploy. In this case, I introduced a bug on purpose with this build. And when I click to preview, by the way, I forgot to mention that every deploy has its own unique endpoint. This is useful because you could show your work to your PM or to your clients. And you can even add, for instance, in the future, we're planning to add webhooks. So you can even add automated tests for this. And it could be pretty cool. If I click here, so this is the unique endpoint that you see, the URL. And then StormKit tells that something got wrong. We have a wrapper around the Lambda function, which basically catches all the errors, and then it displays the error message that is caught, and then the error stack. So in this case, fetching talks failed, and it failed at set talks, so it's much easier for me to debug this. And I can figure this out immediately because probably you will check your feature branch once you deployed it. So this is about the logs. And the logs, here you can, whatever you log in at StormKit, they're going here, so they're easily searchable, and you can, it's much easier than just SSHing into a server and checking for the logs. Okay, so this is about it. What I can show right now is actually something pretty cool. So when I was developing this website yesterday night, I realized that WebZuri is sponsored by GraphCMS. So I thought integrating GraphCMS with StormKit, so we could dynamically generate content. And these 3 talks, they are coming from GraphCMS. If you don't know about it, it's basically a headless CMS. content management system where you can manage your content. And so if I go here, now, for instance, if you check here, Marie Kondo of shipping, and then I go to Graph CMS, and these are the contents. I change it, and instead of title, I say, thanks for listening. This was already tried out, as you can see from the autocomplete. Now, if I saved it, I go back, I refresh, and the content has changed. So you could easily build e-commerce websites or news websites or whatever, and you don't have to touch a single line of server. That was the whole idea behind StormKit. We're still in the alpha stage right now. As Adam mentioned, it's the first time that we're publicly sharing this, and we are looking forward to work with you guys. We would be very happy to hear your feedback, because the idea here, as he said, it's not a sales pitch, but we want to develop this together. It's without requests or feedbacks, it's impossible to build a tool. So that's what we're looking for. Again, thanks for listening. And hold on, one more thing. If you want to get in touch afterwards, we are here for the networking. But otherwise, this is our Twitter accounts and our mail. Yep, thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.